Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Fire Safety Forum, your home, your neighborhood. Thank you all for attending. This is our second forum this year. The Piedmont Pines Neighborhood Association has hosted. This one is open to all Piedmont Pines residents and our dues-paying members, as well as others. We do encourage others who have not joined to please join so we can fully make our budget this year. I'm Stan Weisner. I'm president of the PPNA. I want to thank all our hardworking board members who help make our city and Piedmont Pines a better place to live and raise our families. Now, my role tonight is really just to introduce our board member and facilitator tonight, Peter Seidel, who will be taking on shortly. He'll be going over some of the top key topics for tonight's meeting, and we'll introduce our distinguished speakers. But first, let me turn the mic over to another one of our board members, Natasha Raja, who will review some of the logistics for tonight's meetings. So Natasha, you're on.
Thanks, Stan. Hi, everyone. Welcome again. Really appreciate you taking time to joining us and participating. A few housekeeping things before we jump in, since we have an action-packed agenda. All attendees, as you can see, are muted. If you do have any technical questions, please use the chat feature to send message to the host, and one of us will be able to help you. Especially for Q&A, the most important part of our discussion, please use the Q&A feature so all the panelists can see it and answer it right away. And as you can see it on the slide, for best viewing experience, you might need to change your setting to speaker view. Please complete the survey at the end of the webinar because we really value your feedback. That helps us to get this right every year after year. And lastly, the webinar is recorded. Should you have to jump off before we're done, don't worry, we will be able to send the link and share it with you. One last thing, you will see it towards the end of the this whole webinar, but I do want to bring it up to your attention that we do have our summer picnic coming up on September 8th at Lake Temescal from 11 to 2:30. We will be sending out a reminder, but I just wanted to let you guys know to save the date so we can meet you in person, say hello, and say thank you. All right, Peter, take it over. Thank you, guys.
Hi, welcome. My name's Peter Seidel, and I'm going to be your host tonight for the action-packed agenda that we have for this Fire Safety Forum. We've got great attendance, and these are our panelists. Janani Ramachandran, she's our City Council councilperson for District 4. Deputy Fire Chief from the Oakland Fire Department, Matthew Nicolini. Fire Marshal from Oakland Fire Department, Felicia Bryant. Joe DeVries, he's the Deputy City Administrator for our city. And Joelle Frazier, who is the FireWise Coordinator for the Oakland Fire Safe Council. Let's see. Just one thing that I want to throw in here, there's an award that we give out periodically on approximately an annual basis. And this year, the winner is, Stan, do you have an envelope there?
I do. Mr. Dale Risden, we've invited to join us tonight. There he is in action. Dale is the chair of the Friends for Joaquin Miller Park. He's also the president of his Crane Way neighbors. Oakland has awarded Dale and all the volunteers that have worked with him in our park, which of course is bordering Piedmont Pines, as all of you well know. So we want to bestow on Dale tonight our most prestigious Golden Pinecone Award, which I will personally deliver once I have his exact address. But he's done great work, and we want to congratulate Dale, his fellow residents, and all of you who do this kind of work in our neighborhood. So congratulations, Dale. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Peter.
Thank you. Congratulations, Dale. So let's see. I think we're ready to start. Ms. Ramachandran, are you there?
Yes, just unmuted. Sorry. Hi.
Awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing and allow you to present anything or not. It's your call. Hi, nice to see you. Thank you very much for taking time to join us, and congratulations on being elected to the responsible role on the interagency panel having to do with coordinating fire safety between districts, between cities, and so on. And we really view that as an essential ingredient in what we're trying to accomplish here. So thanks again, and the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, hi everyone. It's great to be with you all again this year. Looking forward to hearing from our other esteemed speakers from other branches of the city. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Janani Ramachandran, and I represent Oakland's District 4. I'll talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that the city is working on, as well as what I'm working on, and then happy to take questions. I don't know right after this, or if the questions will be as a panel, but happy to do so. So firstly, I think the city overall has made some really important and exciting strides in wildfire prevention over the past year. Over the past year and 5 months that I've been in office, to say the least. So when it comes to wildfire prevention, I know a big concern is really the concentration after redistricting of a large majority of the high wildfire severity zones into District 4. I think one thing that I'm very excited about is that we have a lot of buy-in from the 3 other council members who do have some portion of their district in the high wildfire severity zone. Councilmember Kalb, who, formerly had an even larger share in his district, Councilmember Kevin Jenkins, and Councilmember Treva Reed. And the many items that have come before us to council already has definitely seen vocal support from, all 3 of them. And I think that's exciting to have really a coalition of sorts of council members who, even if it's a smaller number of their own constituents impacted by wildfires, are definitely very concerned about it. So in the last few months, we've definitely seen some big wins, including, for example, a $3.2 million contract for goat grazing. I was actually afraid about this one because in the wake of a pretty stressful budget cycle and all of this looming fiscal crisis, et cetera, I was worried that something as important as this, but, may not be necessarily seen by others as a priority, but it passed unanimously out of public safety and then with the full council. Another important thing that passed out of council unanimously was our vegetation management plan. I know this has been in the works for several years with deep coordination between Joe DeVries, the fire department, public works, and many community advocates, including the Fire Safe Council and others. And, really thank you for helping put together what's possibly one of the most comprehensive vegetation management plans in this region. And I'm very excited that, that is going to be the framework for really thinking about what we're going to do comprehensively over the next decade. And speaking about that plan, one of the things that we have been focused on as well is, well, now we have the plan, how do we fund it? As most of you in this room know, city resources for our tree services division under Public Works has fallen greatly over the years. Ever since the 2007-8 financial crisis, that department saw more than halving of their staff. And given the extent of what we have to cover on, including on city-owned property, we simply just don't have the resources to do it ourselves. So on one hand, I really have to thank the many departments, the fire department, and administration really for stepping up to procure grants successfully. There's a lot of conversation about this grant, that grant, or that the city has gotten, but I can, really proudly say that the fire department has been incredibly successful in building partnerships with CAL FIRE, for example, to be able to use their resources in their off season, as well as some powerful grants. And I know there's many in the works and many yet to come that we'll continue to see success from. The other aspect of funding this vegetation management plan's execution is definitely going to come down to what is the new version of what was formerly known as the WPAD. So this year, instead of a wildfire prevention assessment district, what we're going to have is the Wildfire Prevention Special Tax. Now, I'm happy to let Joe go into the nuances of, the benefits of one versus the other, but in short, this is going to be about $99 per parcel. And one of the key, well, two of the key differences, which makes it different from when it came to the ballot the last time around, and some of the reasons I personally think that it is going to be successful this year around is because we have a comprehensive vegetation management plan. We did not back in the last round, I believe 2013. We also now, through city administration, have an interdepartment working group, also under Joe's leadership, that is very comprehensive with very regular meetings and pulls together different branches of the city so that everyone's on the same page. And I think that's a big difference as well, that can really give voters a sense of this is why you should trust that the city is working on this issue comprehensively. We're not just taking your tax money and putting it nowhere, where, yes, taking your tax money and putting it into a systematic approach to really dealing with wildfire prevention. And so, and there are some specific exceptions for low-income individuals and low-income seniors, but generally this is going to be comprehensive, and of course, helping us fund removal of dead and dying trees and overgrowing vegetation, especially on city-owned property, as well as to be able to use these funds towards education of residents, coordination of volunteer groups, and really be a signal to those that we're trying to get more grants from, that hey, you can see that the city ourselves, we're putting a commitment forward here to comprehensively dealing with an issue, and so are our residents. So I think that presents a real strong argument to be able to get matching grants and really additional sources of resources on top of that. And, one thing that, as a new, I currently live in the side of our district now, which was on a street that was mostly burnt down by the 91 fires. And what I see in my neighborhood, and previously I did not live in a high wildfire severity zone, but I moved here pretty recently. And what I see in a lot of the demographics of the hills, as well as what a lot of you see, is newer residents who don't quite understand the legacy of the East Bay Hills firestorm, of things that have gone on over the years. So I really think the voter education piece and just the volunteer education piece is going to be critical to helping make sure that it's not just folks who have been in these neighborhoods for a long time to get to understand the importance of it, but also making sure we're educating and getting the buy-in from our newer residents as well, who may not quite know that history. A couple of other things, I'll talk very briefly, lastly, on the MOU. So as many of you know, there's been a lot of concerted efforts thanks to advocates over the years. Again, especially the Oakland Fire Safe Council, as well as others, that have really worked to put a comprehensive MOU together. The original goal was to have a JPA of sorts, and that morphed into an MOU between different jurisdictions. So right now we have at least 6 different, soon, who are part of this set of leaders who are all really concerned about wildfire prevention for their constituents in different ways, with experiences in their own political work and their distinct regions coming together to put their minds together towards this. So we've had our first meeting. We're going to have our second one on July 8th. And they are public meetings. The first one, and actually the upcoming one, is going to be at El Cerrito City Hall. And the location will rotate around. But if you're signed up for our newsletter, and if you're not, I'll put a link into the chat as well to sign up. We will share an update about the time, location, information to attend the next meeting as well. I was elected to be vice chair of this group, and the chair is Sue Weingraf from Berkeley, who has done a lot of work over the years on wildfire prevention. So we're starting to meet pretty regularly to discuss, what the goal of this group is going to be, what we can achieve out of it, how we can get to work quickly without too much too much talk, basically. And a couple of the hot button issues that we know all of our jurisdictions care about is one, insurance rates. You know, even for those folks who may not understand the impacts and devastation that a wildfire can cause, already know the impacts to homeowners insurance and other kinds of insurance that the threat of wildfires are causing. So one thing that we are trying to do early on is be able to ask Ricardo Lara and himself to come and address the group to explain, you know, what are the various attempts. There's been numerous policy changes through both his office and Governor Newsom's initiative with, you know, more just a couple of days ago, more initiatives coming out. What's the impact of it? Because right now on the day-to-day, our residents are not necessarily seeing any positive changes. So that's definitely something of concern. Getting PG&E to be more supportive of undergrounding efforts. I know that's really a sore topic for me, as I'm sure many of you here, just given the pace at which that they've not quite completed their projects in Piedmont Pines and nearby areas. And with work credits expiring, you know, there's a whole lot of uncertainty right now. And I know that many of you are helping work to better understand this issue. And me and my team are fully on board with trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with these work credits before they expire and how can we underground, you know, simply as much as possible in the Oakland Hills. And through this group, we're hoping to collectively apply pressure to, you know, not just the governor's office, but also PG&E and some of these other entities as well. And another goal of this group is definitely going to be regional coordination. Again, I really do believe Oakland's vegetation management plan is one of the most comprehensive in the city. Berkeley has a lot of extensive work done as well, but not every East Bay city is quite at the level that we are. And I think it's going to be really helpful to see how we can all align with one another, starting with our fire department and then working our way up to how do we come up with a regional vegetation management plan as well. And that, of course, will involve partnership with East Bay Parks districts and others. And, you know, I look forward to continuing this work and seeing how it can accelerate. And on that note, I will pause right here.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. Let's see, I think you addressed the one question that was in the Q&A. About insurance and how that's on a lot of people's minds. I think if there aren't more, Natasha, did you notice any other questions that came up that I might have missed?
Yeah, we're good.
Online? I think we're good. Okay, so thank you again, Councilmember Ramachandran, and thank you for your time and your effort on this topic. We really appreciate it. Deputy Chief Matthew Nicolini, the floor is yours.
Good evening, all. I'm a little under the weather this evening, so I'm going to leave my camera off if that's okay with everybody. Quick little something about me. As I was introduced, my name is Matthew Nicolini. I am the Deputy Chief of Operations. I'm a proud Oakland resident of District 4. I oversee our 26 firehouses, along with our Special Operations Division, such as Water Rescue, Technical Rescue, our airport fire station, and our hazmat team. It's about 500 sworn personnel in the fire department. I also want you to know that my family lost their home in the Oakland Hills fire, so fire safety is not only a profession of mine, it's also very personal to me as well. I was given a few questions to try to touch on during my presentation, so I will cover those now. One was the state of the Oakland Fire Department. How does it stand compared to last year? Well, as we all know, the city of Oakland's going through a major budget deficit, and it is affecting the fire department. Luckily, the proposed budget that came out last week, we have no firehouse closures at this time, except for the one remaining closure from last year, station number 10 on Santa Clara. With that said, we are deleting and freezing many positions within the fire department, which will hurt our everyday business, but it will not impact our actual closures of fire stations. Regarding wildland firefighting, we're adding 2 new water tenders to our fleet. This will increase our response capabilities to bring much needed water into areas where it's hard to get hydrants and other items like that to fight wildland fires. We're also expecting to receive over the next couple of years new ladder trucks and new engines. And finally, we have 35 new recruits in our training academy, which we expect to graduate this August. So that will also help with our staffing needs and keep moving the Oakland Fire Department forward. The next topic I was asked to talk about is our regional cooperation. What is OFD plans to improve safety through regional cooperation and coordination? Well, as always, the Oakland Fire Department is involved in the mutual aid process throughout the state of California. We do many drills with our neighboring jurisdictions, such as Moraga, Orinda, Berkeley, Alameda County Fire, and of course, CAL FIRE. We're part of the pre-positioning of units throughout the city, throughout the state, when any red flags or natural disasters are declared. And most recently this weekend, we sent crews to the Altamont Livermore area for the Corral Fire. Furthermore, all fire departments in Alameda County are moving to Tablet Command, which is a tablet program. So we're all on a common operating platform for incidents that go over different jurisdictions. Let's see what else here. I was also told to talk about city strategies, policies, and legislation to promote greater fire safety. I would say one of the areas that always concerns me is parking enforcement. Parking enforcement is very difficult up in the Oakland Hills on a daily basis, and any help and support that we can get for that would be extremely important. Furthermore, we are making proactive steps, though, for the 4th of July to close down Grizzly Peaks to stop cars from parking along that street during such busy times. And I would like to see that grow with the Department of Transportation and OPD for red flag events. And finally, the other legal issue, definitely a legal issue, Joe can probably touch on this a little bit for me too. You're welcome, Joe. Is vacant privately owned residents that are non-compliant with their veggie management inspections, and also buildings that are vacant throughout the Oakland that become a fire hazard. It is very difficult for us to mitigate those situations, get them torn down, even boarded up or fenced up through the legal process. And those then create hazards for neighboring buildings, lots, businesses, etc. Other than that, that's basically the Oakland Fire Department in a gist. I know Fire Marshal Bryant is going to talk more about veggie management in her spiel. I'm available for questions if anything is needed.
Thank you very much. Let's see. I think you covered everything. Were there any questions, Natasha? Are we good? Good to go. I don't see any questions that are dangling.
Yeah, we're
That's
good to go, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Please
Even
do,
though I
Steve.
didn't put
Go
it
ahead.
yet, but I'm still on here. I'm curious what the fire department looks at in terms of its budget proposals coming out of the mayor's office. Any further news of any changes that will be made?
As I stated earlier, we won't be closing any firehouses as of today. We are deleting and freezing multiple positions throughout the department that will impact our everyday business, but it won't impact our fire emergency service delivery. Does that kind of answer your question?
Well, I'm curious whether there's much back and forth going on between you and the budget in its current form, or
Over the last several months, there's definitely been a lot of back and forth. We hope to continue that back and forth through the month of June and maybe see some even less reductions in our overall budget. But until that happens and the city council approves it, I won't know much more.
But as it's going to council, yes. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So our next speaker is Deputy.
Sorry,
Looks
Peter.
like-
We have a quick open question from Nate over here. If you want to, it's in the Q&A.
In the Q&A, yes. Can we add signs for no parking along the park on Castle from sunset to sunrise? So is there a possibility to add no parking signs? And you're going to get an online answer from Joe DeVries here. I see he's typing an answer.
May I
And
just
Joe is the next speaker, in fact. Oh, and go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you. Just really quickly to address the question about the budget. So Right now, it is in council's hands now that the mayor's proposed budget was put forward. Council members only have about 8 days to digest the budget and put forward amendments. So I am working on something that will come out will be published by Friday, hopefully, to be heard at the June 12th meeting. And 2 of my amendments will include reinstating some of the previously frozen staff with the fire department. Just as a heads up, the 2 positions that I'm trying to find some money to be able to put towards funding are 1, fire inspectors. So these are civilian roles, at least reinstating a couple of these roles. And then 2 would be one of the deputy captains that was frozen. And I believe the fire inspector positions in the proposed budget, they weren't actually frozen, but they were, to my understanding, 10 that were deleted altogether. So my ask would be to reinstate a couple of these and at least freeze the rest rather than delete them. And then secondly would be to reinstate one of those deputy captain positions. And the reason is that my understanding is this role in the fire department plays a lead in grant writing, which again, I talked about the fire department being so successful at, and to lose that opportunity would really be devastating to the city. And if you have questions about the mayor's proposed budget, you can come to our budget town hall this coming Thursday. If you have questions about our proposal once they're released on Friday, feel free to contact our office. And if you would like to voice support for anything in our proposal, we definitely invite you to join us for the June 12th budget meeting. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, our next speaker is Joe DeVries. He's the Deputy City Administrator. He's also coordinated the Wildfire Protection Working Team, and he also coordinates very closely with the Oakland Fire Safe Council in getting community feedback. That's one of the ways he gets community feedback. And so, Joe, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Peter. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Very well, thanks.
Great. And thanks for having me. I got to follow 2 great speakers, and I have to say, for my role in the city administrator's office as your chief resilience officer, it's one of my titles. It's really lovely to have our elected officials, our legislative body, and our departments, in our fire department so well aligned. And I think that this high fire severity zone of Oakland, this wildfire protection zone, which I actually also live in, is really well served by the unity that we share around the importance of wildfire prevention. My role in the city administrator's office is to see that unity really transcends to all the departments. And so that question the question about parking restrictions in the hills, that's something that OCDOT, well, actually before there was an OCDOT, when it was Public Works, worked with the council member's office and did a survey of many streets and implemented parking restrictions. It was not easy. It was controversial at the time because obviously a lot of narrow streets and not a lot of parking, and people have a lot of cars. But that level of coordination is really what's necessary to see that we preserve our safety. The Wildfire Prevention Group working group is an interdepartmental group. We meet monthly. Some months we don't have a whole lot to cover. Other months we have more. But the point of the meeting and the point of the working group is to really see that these departments have programmed themselves to keep wildfire prevention as one of their highest priorities. And so a really good recent example, we submitted our housing element and our zoning code to the State Housing and Community Development Department a few years back, or actually less than a few years back, maybe a year and a half ago. And in that code, we created what's called the S9 overlay, which basically means anywhere in the high fire severity zone, if you're on a street that's fewer than 26 feet wide and is 600 feet before the next turnoff, we put some significant restrictions on your ability to develop an ADU or an auxiliary dwelling unit. And the reason we do that is because we simply cannot have more density in the hills on these very narrow streets where we already know evacuation will be a challenge. And so we put in parking restrictions. Well, the state pushed back. because of their desire to promote more housing, because we are facing a housing crisis, they wanted to loosen those restrictions. And our planning department worked with our city attorney's office to bring forward a new package and to basically push back on the state. And that went to our economic development committee of the city council yesterday, and it's going to go to the full council tomorrow. So this is just an example where it's not the fire department only lifting up the importance of wildfire prevention. It's our strategic planning division of the planning department working in partnership with the city attorney, getting input from fire, getting input from the Department of Transportation, so that we could put forward regulations that make sense. And that's the kind of coordination that we're trying to do on an ongoing basis. It can be as simple as moving a log to a turnout where we're trying to block illegal gatherings from occurring, or working on legislation like that. I think the questions that I had for tonight that I want to make sure I answer, let me just kind of look back at my notes. What operational changes have been made to increase interdepartmental coordination? Really in the last year, not a lot has changed. We created this working group at the beginning of 2021. And if anything, the working group has grown in terms of the number of people involved, and we've grown in terms of the amount of items that we cover, in terms of the volume of what we're looking at. But we haven't really changed our operations essentially. I think the biggest change that was already lifted up by our council member was the adoption of the vegetation management plan. This is a big deal. It took us 7 years to get it right. But it was worth the wait, because now we have an action plan that we can implement. And as she mentioned, we've drafted a special tax that goes in front of the full council for consideration tomorrow. I think that is the most significant thing this year, is that while we continue to pursue grant funding and have been successful in a lot of our partnerships, for example, the Cal Fire partnership in Joaquin Miller Park, has been phenomenal in terms of getting the free reduction of fuel in the park from Cal Fire. That's been an amazing thing. And we had $1 million grant from Cal Fire that we just completed, removing dead and dying trees along Skyline Boulevard. We planted, long-lasting, sustainable oak trees in their place, so that we're preserving that area. But as we pursue those grants, having our own dedicated funding source that is solely devoted to wildfire prevention in the wildfire protection zone is the most important thing we can do. Because when you go out for grants from Cal Fire or from the feds, when you show your own local commitment, you're always more successful in acquiring these grants and in getting this extra support. So I think the council member touched on it a little bit, but if I could touch on the special tax a little bit more, since I drafted it based on the old versions, we're basically asking single family property owners to chip in $99 a year. Not a whole lot to preserve our areas, to protect our evacuation routes. If it's a multifamily dwelling, it'll be $65 per unit. There's exemptions for senior citizens and low-income persons. There's a formula for commercial properties and vacant properties that I'm not going to waste a lot of time on now. But essentially, in its first year, we anticipate it to generate $2.67 million to go toward wildfire prevention. And it's very explicit that it has to be used to implement the vegetation plan, to do some of the public outreach and education that's important, to see that private property owners are participating in the plan, to enhance our inspections, to expand roadside clearing on our evacuation routes, and to promote community oversight. So the law as written, it compels the city council to adopt enabling ordinance to create an oversight body. And we really want that oversight body to be helping advise us, not just on how we spend the money each year, but on best practices, on what's happening regionally and everywhere. And to see that there's that community involvement, because we can't do this alone. The fire department can't do it without the planning department, and the city can't do it without the residents. And I think that's been proven. The reason we went with a special tax, which requires a 2/3 vote, which is more than a WPAD, which was a simple majority, is because it gives us the flexibility to apply the dollars throughout the high fire severity zone. Under tax law now, and this was not the case 15 years ago, the laws are much tighter, and we would have to do an engineering report and show the benefit to each individual parcel for charging that $99 each year. And that's cumbersome, and it's rife with legal challenges. So it made more sense to go with a special tax that can be applied to the area. And I think that's a big deal again. And so I do hope people will read up on it and think about it. We did write into it public education and outreach because, and again, the council member made this point earlier, those of us that have seen or experienced a wildfire or seen a home on fire know just how profound it is. I had the experience a number of years ago where the house behind mine caught fire, and it was the scariest experience of my life. But those who've just moved to the hills, those who didn't experience that September 9th, 2020 day of no sun, they don't understand it. And so it's really incumbent upon all of us to do that education. And so a component of the measure is to see that we're doing that on an annual basis as well. So I'm very excited about that. Having the vegetation management plan finally across the finish line and having a special tax to support it is fantastic. I think the fact that we have joined and signed the MOU and joined the regional wildfire group, we don't know yet what that group is going to come up with, but we know we're stronger together, and we know that will mean a lot to us. With that, I'll keep it short and answer any questions that come up in the chat. But I think the people that went before me did a great job.
Thank you, Joe. There's some questions that have come in.
Okay.
And I'll read them to you. So please repeat what PG&E is doing regarding phase 2 undergrounding of Chelton Drive. I don't know if you spoke to that but who can comment briefly on the status of phase 2 and what PG&E is doing? And where can we find a copy of the vegetation?
Excuse me, but I can
Thank
talk
you.
about
Go
the
ahead.
undergrounding real briefly. And that is that we are in the design phase for undergrounding on the Shelton corridor, and it will then go out to bid for construction, and then it will get constructed. And it will be not until 1927, I think it is, that construction will, the shovels will hit the ground. But if it's anything like the way the Ascot corridor was worked, that was really super speedy. I was very impressed with how PG&E coordinated that job. So we'll keep you posted on that in our e-newsletter.
Thank you.
And Peter, there were a few other questions that reminded me of a couple things I didn't cover. So if I could answer them, I will put a link to the vegetation management plan in the chat as soon as I'm done speaking. We are not asking people outside of the hills to vote for the tax. Only people who live in the wildfire prevention zone will vote for the tax. And so even though it really does have a regional benefit because wildfires know no boundaries, it's really those of us who live in the zone that are going to be funding this, and that's why the money is kept in the zone. So that's to answer that question. The question about qualifying us for a special discount on our homeowners insurance, I failed to mention the city has taken a position in support of Senate Bill 1060. And this is an insurance bill that actually does acknowledge that it's the Fire Insurance Risk Evaluation Act. And what it does is it requires insurance companies, or it will require insurance companies to take into consideration actions that people take, like home hardening, wildfire resilience, so it's going to require insurance companies to not just cancel us outright because of where we are on the map, but to actually take into account that which we've done. And so we are definitely behind it. I know the mayor sent a letter of support for it. Again, that's Senate Bill 1060. We want to keep working on that. Another thing I failed to mention on homeowners insurance, because I'm the chief resilience officer, we're part of a network of resilience officers around the country. that group offered us the opportunity to bring on a fellow. So for the next 6 months, we actually have brought on an insurance expert to look at our policies and procedures, to look at the landscape in the state, and to make some recommendations to us as the city about potential policy changes that we could make that could impact people's fire insurance. And so we don't know where it's going to go. That fellow just started with us last week and is doing their research. But we're hoping they'll come out with some recommendations that we can both implement locally and that could inform state legislation. So we're and as a person who had their homeowners insurance canceled, I can attest to this is an issue that's really important to a lot of us. There was a question about enforcement of parking. Parking enforcement, during regular days is a bit of a challenge for us. We are we do ask that ODOT deploy their parking enforcement technicians to the hills on red flag days, on high fire days, and they do. You may not see it as much as you would like, and it's not every day. We do not have enough parking enforcement technicians to cover the whole city, but we do redeploy them to the hills on the days that are most dangerous. And as Chief Nicolini mentioned earlier, we are closing down Redwood Grizzly Peak for July 4th, which has been successful every year. And we've asked parking enforcement to help us on July 4th as well, to really make sure people are abiding by the law. And I think that was most of the questions. I will.
Can I put one in, Joe, to you?
Sure.
You mentioned the boundaries, that only those in the boundaries are voting, which is something people don't always understand. Secondly, is as I understand it, it's going to require 2/3 of a vote. And I'm curious, are the boundaries exactly the same as they were when WPAD came up before? As many of you know, and some might not know, it only failed by a few dozen votes. So I'm curious, I know you cannot advocate for its passage, but I would encourage all those listening here and others to speak to your neighbors about the importance of voting yes on that measure when it appears on the ballot in November.
Yeah, Stan, that's right. It's a 2/3 vote, and it was a 2/3 vote that failed in 2013, and it failed by 60 votes, which is painful.
That doesn't.
The difference in 2013 was we didn't have a plan, and we have a plan now. And we didn't have interdepartmental coordination to the level that we have now. And that's been codified by the city council adopting the resolution they adopted in 2019. And so I think that's really important for voters to know. The other thing is, if all goes well with the registrar of voters, you'll vote on this along with the rest of your ballot in November. It's not a mail-in separate ballot, but it's going to be on the general election ballot. Now, that's not 100% guarantee. We're still working things out with the registrar. We won't know until the end of July, but we're going through all the process, and it should appear. So we feel confident that this is the right plan, and that we'll be more successful this time around.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for your efforts, Joe, and your time this evening. And if you see other questions that have come up that we missed, please try to answer them in the chat or in the Q&A box. And thanks again. Our next speaker is Fire Marshal Felicia Bryant, and she's going to segue on some of the topics that we've talked about already and talk about, inspections and so on. Felicia, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us and making time for us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for allowing fire prevention to be a part of this conversation. I know many of you are probably curious about some of the information that I'll be sharing for the questions that were sent to me. A brief introduction. My name is Felicia Bryant. I've been with the Oakland Fire Department for 20 years. I was also here during the Oakland Hills fire, and still support in making sure that we keep all communities safe, but especially those that are at risk for a potential fire that could happen in the Hills area in the very high fire severity zone. Some of you may have already received your pamphlets for when we'll be starting our inspections. We start on June 10th, which is actually next Monday. You should have received it already. If you haven't, we have some extras. Just let me know and we'll make sure that we can drop some off to someone, whoever the resource will be. Peter, I don't know if that would be you, but we could find a way to get some so that your neighbors can have them. The inspections start on June 10th. You can find out your exact date by going onto the city's website at the City of Oakland Permit Center webpage. There is a fire tab, and it's quite a few steps. I wish it was simpler, but there is a way where you can find out the exact date of your inspection to see when you should be prepared. But one thing that I want to really stress is to not focus on the date. Have your home prepared at all times. Unfortunately, in the neighborhoods that we live in the environment that we have, a fire can happen at any point. Unfortunately, we see what's happening in Livermore. It wasn't expected. You know, it wasn't a day where we had high winds or where we were told it was a red flag warning. It was just the right condition at the right time. And now we have crews trying to keep those communities safe. So my biggest point of education is making sure that you're safe, your home is ready and prepared at all times for an inspection, whether we came tomorrow or July 23rd, it wouldn't matter. Other questions that I received were, have any changes been made to the inspection program? No changes have been made. Everything is the same. For those who don't know and who are new to this process, I'll give you a brief explanation of what happens. You have your initial inspection completed by a fire crew, a fire department crew. They come out, inspect your home. If you're compliant, excellent. You will then receive notification saying that your home you've passed your inspection process. If it's non-compliant, you have 45 days to correct and send photos to our department identifying the deficiencies, corrections. If we receive the photos and we show that they're successful, then you will not have to get another inspection from us. If from the 45th day and beyond, you're still working on it, we will come and do another inspection. It is at that second inspection that you would receive an inspection notice and invoice. Your first inspection is free. The city does not charge for it, but any inspection after your first one will be, you will be assessed a fee according to the master fee schedule. What's the schedule for the goats? Everybody loves the goats. I love the goats. Yay, we finally got the goats because the goats really reach the areas that we can't get to. And for those of us who lived through the Hills Fire, I see the impact of what the goats can do. So they've been scheduled out. They've started. As far as when they'll be in the community of Piedmont Pines and Joaquin Miller, I'm just going to read it to you right now. So the areas that I've identified to be in this space that you guys are asking for, the Leona Lodge, they will begin Wednesday, July 3rd, around the Leona Lodge, around Shepherd Canyon Park. It will begin from August 16th. The city stables, May 28th. So they actually already started and they actually left there already. And then Joaquin Miller Park, July 8th. And these are tentative start dates. Nothing is etched in stone, but I say tentative because they may be at one area a little bit longer, so it could delay them starting at another area. But we try to stay as close to the schedule as possible to make sure that the goats are doing what we really love for them to do, and that is to eat up the vegetation and get it down to a very low graze so that the fire is less likely to spread in those city lots. As far as the clearing lots of the other areas that do not incorporate the goats, we're still working on contracts for those. Our goal is to have them out as soon as possible. I know the 4th of July is coming. I know that is a very tense time for a lot of people who live in Oakland just because of the amount of fireworks, but we're being very diligent in making sure that we try to get the hand crews out there to manage the city lots. But between what we will be starting with property owners and what we'll be doing with the city lots, I think, and I'm hoping that we'll have another successful year. I've been in this position for 2.5 years, and we continue to get a great success rate and compliance. And I think that's because we do a lot of time educating people on the benefit, and they adhere to it, and they really make it personable because they do not want to be the one where their neighbors are looking at them as far as, why didn't you do enough? So Thank you for this forum. I think it's really beneficial. And I think our residents in the very high fire severity zone have been doing a great job in helping keeping the city safe. I think I answered all the questions, Peter. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
I
thank
wanted
you.
to
I'm just,
add, I want to
go
add
ahead.
one thing.
Yeah,
And that is, as Felicia said, the Excella process for finding your inspection date is not easy. And I have learned the pitfall where everybody falls through the rabbit hole. So for those members in Piedmont Pines who have paid their dues for 2024, send me an email with your address and I will get your inspection date. It takes me 2 seconds. It will take you 20 minutes.
and I will say that thank you, Robbie, for that. But we also have and our staff will help you as well. Feel free to call our staff. This is a busy time for them, but we have really been really responsive to the emails and the phone calls. And most of you, I'm sure I've talked to Adam Ball. He does a really good job in trying to be really attentive to the questions and the concerns by those in those communities. So whatever we can do will assist, but you also have Robbie to help you. So thank you.
let's see, there was a specific question about the city plan to fill the 21 holes on Chelton between Long Walk and Chelsea. It is a hazard to fire engines going up and down the hill and can result in a problem. So I don't know if that's something that Joe wants to speak to, or
I'll
I
pass
think
it to
that's
Joe.
yeah, lucky you, Joe.
I don't have a copy of the paving plan. So I don't know the answer, but I could look it up and put it in the chat. The city has a paving plan. The OakDOT produces it. It's fairly comprehensive. So I could just do some quick typing and add that if you'd like.
And thank you. And there's another one here. Does Oakland have an evacuation plan like the city of Berkeley? Especially focused on getting out safely. So who would like to speak to that? Joe, do you have something to say about it?
Sure, Joe.
Or Felicia?
Well, so
Or
I mean, we do have a evacuation plan, and it's knowing your zone. So if you know your zone, then that way you can find out your evacuation plan on how to safely get out. I do not know what Berkeley has, so I can't speak. I can't compare the two. I can only speak to what we have, but we do have that as a resource to those in the communities of knowing your zone and knowing how to safely evacuate in the event of a fire or an emergency.
thank you. And one last question. Does OFD use drone cameras to view inaccessible areas?
We do not use drone cameras. It's been something that's been explored and talked about, but it's not there yet. We're not there yet as a city, but I'm sure as soon as we get there, everyone will be aware of it, because we want to make sure that neighbors know what's going on and that we're just not looking at spaces without proper notification.
All right. All right. Well, I want to be sensitive to people's time here, and I think we should move on. Thank you again, Felicia. That
you.
was great. And if you see questions in the Q&A box that I missed, then go for it. Answer them there if you would. And
Okay.
let's see. Our next speaker is Joelle Fraser. She is she coordinates the FireWise program and promotes the FireWise program in various neighborhoods in Oakland. The Oakland Fire Safe Council is a wonderful, citizen-run organization that has a wonderful website with tons of resources about fire safety, and I recommend that if you haven't seen it, check it out. Joelle, the floor is yours. Thank you for making time for us tonight.
Great, thank you so much. So again, I'm Joelle Fraser, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the Safe Council, in case you haven't heard of us, and to talk more specifically about one of our programs, that is FireWise USA. And actually, I do have a slideshow, so I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Can everyone see my screen?
Looks good.
Okay, great. So first off, the Oakland Fire Safe Council, we were founded 10 years ago in 2014. Happy anniversary to us. We were founded by survivors of the 1991 Oakland firestorm, Sue Piper and Ken Besson. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that serves all of Oakland. And we are just one of over 100 fire safe councils in California. They're really all over California. We are, of course, a board with many volunteers, and we are committed to wildfire prevention, vegetation management, as well as emergency and wildfire preparedness. We regularly partner with city, county, as well as other fire safe councils on different initiatives. And we are committed to sharing best practices on emergency and wildfire preparedness. This is just a sample of some of our programs here. So again, it's literally a treasure trove of information and resources for residents. So we have information on my program, Firewise USA, firescaping, red flag warnings, Park Like Your Life Depends on It. As well, we have the Savvy Town Hall videos. So they are pre-recorded videos on everything from, there's one on Firewise, there's a great one on home hardening, and we actually have one that Adam Ball recorded on the upcoming vegetation management inspection. So I urge you to check those out. Also, advocacy is a big component of what we do. And actually everything I was going to say was already touched on by either Council Member Ramachandran or Joe DeVries. But a lot of this, we were a big part of providing input and support to those initiatives. I also wanted to say that you can volunteer. Oakland Fire Safe Council definitely urges people to volunteer in our beautiful city parks and the open space on fuel reduction. And there is lots of opportunity to volunteer and lots to be done. Depend on our volunteers like Del Risden to make a difference in our parks. We also have a lot of guides on preparedness. There's actually 25 downloadable guides on everything. We were talking about evacuation, what to do, evacuation, how to pack your go bags, how to take care of your pets. So I to look at our guides and download them and share them with your neighbors. We also have free wildfire and emergency preparedness workshops. If you're interested in a workshop, please reach out to us. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our wonderful newsletter. So if you go to our website, please hit subscribe to our newsletter. And if you want any more information on our guides or our programs, please reach out to either info or prepare at the Oakland Fire Safe Council. So next, I'm going to talk more specifically about Firewise. Again, I am the Firewise lead for the Oakland Fire Safe Council. So what is Firewise? Firewise is a program of the National Fire Protection Association. And we are what it does is it provides for you a self-directed collaborative framework that enables you to work together with your neighborhood and your community to reduce wildfire risks. So it's really a community-driven approach. It's individual responsibility and it's voluntary. This is a recognition. It is not a certification. Going through the process educates the community on wildfire risks to the home and neighborhood, and it provides a means for risk reduction for residents as well as first responders. The process starts with an assessment that is essentially a walkthrough or a drive-through of your community where you're assessing risks. And then you decide as a group what to do with that information, and you come up with a 3-year hazard mitigation plan or action plan. This is just a map of all of the Firewise sites throughout California. Throughout the United States, rather. You can see that there are a lot in California. We now have 800 Firewise recognized sites in California, the most of any state. You see over to the right, I've circled the Firewise recognized sites in Oakland. There's actually 5 now, but our 5th has not made it to the interactive map. So the furthest south here is Skyline Boulevard. So that was recognized last fall. That's the Skyline Boulevard area between Handsome and Park Ridge, including the city stables and all of the cul-de-sacs. The next one up is Klamath Burnell, which is adjacent to Joaquin Miller Park. And that was our first Firewise recognized site. Up from that is Cabs. That is in Montclair. And Cabs is Colton, Asilomar, Balboa, and Snake, part of Snake actually. The Firewise recognized site above that is actually in the Hiller Highlands. It's our first Firewise recognized site in the Hiller Highlands. And it's called the Kaiser Elementary site because it does include the Kaiser Elementary School there. Our last one that isn't shown on this map is Fountains. So it is the area kind of adjacent to Highway 13 across from Montclair. And that's our biggest Firewise recognized site. It actually has 106 dwellings in it. So why should you become Firewise? Well, it reduces your risk in home and property from wildfire, and in California, it's not if, it's when. And then there's improved awareness as a community of what you should be doing. What are the effective actions you should be taking to prevent home ignitions? So part of it is home improvements and modification education, what you should be doing in general to take care of your property and protect your home, and especially what you should be doing to prepare for the upcoming fire inspections. Of course, this is insurance is a hot topic. There is a potential for a reduced insurance premium. Most of the sites I've worked with already are getting a, it's a small but appreciated reduction in the insurance cost. And then going through it, you really meet more people. It's community pride. You meet more of your neighbors. And of course, preparing for a wildfire disaster and becoming organized helps you prepare for other disasters. And it's free. There's no annual cost to Firewise. There is no application cost. On average, neighbors invest about 1 hour of volunteer time per dwelling in the boundary, and I'll talk more about boundaries later, to stay in good standing. And all of the documentation is done by you, of course, with my help and with the help of Firewise USA, CAL FIRE, and the Oakland Fire Department. So the basic steps are organizing. You have to organize a small group of neighbors that are interested in becoming Firewise recognized. And then the planning is planning for the assessment and creating an action plan. And then you do the identified actions, and then you celebrate your success and report back to Firewise. So a little more on organizing. So you do have to identify a group or a resident leader. We kind of call that the spark plug of your neighborhood, who is going to be the driver behind all of the actions, and kind of a point of contact for myself and for Firewise USA, and somebody just to keep all the receipts and paperwork. We actually have, the NFPA has a account that you have to create. You become part of their Firewise portal. And if you're in Oakland, I'm immediately assigned to you. So you get your neighborhoods together, you talk to them about Firewise. Many people have asked me to present to their groups on Zoom, and then we work on all of the steps together. And you only need 8 dwellings to participate. So you don't need a lot to actively participate. But again, your boundary is much bigger than those 8 participants. And of course, no more than 2,500, and that's usually not a problem in Oakland. So the plan is you define your boundaries of your proposed Firewise area. And that means CAL FIRE wants to see a well-defined boundary. So not just like one part of the street and then you ignore the rest of the street. They want it well-defined. And lately I've just been sending a screenshot of a Google map of the proposed boundary to CAL FIRE to kind of have it pre-approved before we go any further in the steps. And that's worked out pretty well. So the community assessment is the first part and most important step for you to take in the process. And there is training available. So I help you with the assessment, but we do want you to go through a tutorial. There's a great, I think it's a 30-minute interactive tutorial on the NFPA website. And now they also have it's about an hour-long module to go through. And anyone who wants to do the assessment, I really highly recommend that they go through that tutorial, because it gets us all on the same page of what we're looking at, and it gets us to use a shared language when we look at the. So you perform your assessment with a resident leader and a small team. This is your primary tool for determining your action plan. Also take pictures. That's really important to take before pictures, because you'd be amazed at how much work you get done from the time where you start to become a FireWise neighborhood and a year later. So it's really great to celebrate your success by taking pictures. Of course, if possible, invite a fire professional. And then after the assessment, you create an action plan based on the findings in the assessment. This is an example of a well-defined boundary. So this is our Skyline Boulevard boundary. Again, Skyline Boulevard was recognized last fall. So the boundary goes south from Handsome, goes all the way up to Park Ridge Drive. It includes the city stables, so we are working with the city on this. And then, of course, all of the little cul-de-sacs there are included. It's actually 65 homes. And you can see that you could see the outline, the parcels of the boundary. CAL FIRE does require that we zone in and include the outline of all of the parcels. So how to conduct the risk assessment. So it speaks to the general conditions of the FireWise site, and it does not include looking at information on every individual dwelling. And again, it's a street view. So you may be doing an assessment and you have dwellings off. You do not have to walk down the driveways of individuals who might not be taking part in FireWise yet. But of course, we encourage outreach to them so that everybody in the dwelling does participate eventually. So the assessment focuses on the vulnerability of the homes to ember, surface, and crown fire, the conditions of the structures themselves, immediate hazards in the home ignition zones. And then it is an opportunity to look at any adjacent open space or adjacent land and see what the fuel mitigation plan is for that. So we're also looking at the structural characteristics of the house itself, the vegetation types and density, and looking at what fuels are on the ground and what fuels, how many trees there are, the crown fuels. Of course, we use this to look at the house. It's the 3 home ignition zones. So it's the house itself, and 5 feet out is the immediate zone. The intermediate zone is 5 to 30 feet, and the extended zone is 30 to 100 feet. And we know not everybody has 100 feet of property, but that's why it's so important to work with your neighbors, because your 100 feet of defensible space could go into your neighbor's yard. So that's why it's good to have more participation. Some sample assessment questions that are on the actual assessment are the roofs and gutters clean of debris? Have the vents been covered in fire safe mesh? Is there dead vegetation by the foundation of the house? Are there any fuel breaks? Sometimes you have driveways and walkways and paths that you just have as a natural feature of your yard, and you didn't realize that it's actually providing a fuel break. Have the ladder fuels been removed underneath trees? Are the trees pruned up to 6 feet? And again, what are the common areas or public lands around you that you may be concerned about that you can address in your action plan? So writing the action plan, you identify the actions based on the assessment that could be taken to reduce the risk of wildfire for your neighborhood. And there are templates for all of this paperwork that I'm referring to. As you can see, there's links, because I usually share this slideshow with folks afterwards so they could click on all the links. The action plan template is from CAL FIRE. We're using the one from the fall, which is the newest template. So also in the action plan template, you focus on the 3 ignition zones for home hardening and fuel reduction. So you have actions addressing home hardening, actions addressing fuel reduction, and you also have a section on education and outreach. the Firewise does say that you have to hold one education event per year to stay in good standing. Also, other things to consider in your action plan are your fire hydrant locations. Are they visible? Is there brush overgrowing them? Where are they? Are they working? And of course, evacuation is really a big thing in the Oakland Hills in the very high fire severity zone. So how would you get out? Practicing more than one way to get out of your community, and also considering if you had to evacuate by foot, how would you go? Where would you go, and how would you get there? Evacuation is one of the buckets of information that you do have to address in your action plan. And one of the things I recommend people do is just work on an evacuation map together. We also have the CAB site did a mock evaluation last year, and they wrote a blog on it that is available on our website. And I urge everyone to take a look at it because it's virtually a how-to on how to create an evacuation plan for your neighborhood. Other things to address are street signs and address numbers. Are they visible? Are they visible in the evening? Are they visible from both directions? And again, about sharing public land, figuring out where this public land that you're looking at, who owns it, talking to the city of Oakland and asking about their vegetation management plan, which I know they have now for all the open space in the very high fire severity zones. Some action plan ideas, they could be really simple. So clear the immediate zone of flammable debris, remove debris from your gutters and roof, locate all the fire hydrants in the neighborhood, install or replace house numbers so they're visible day or night, and create an evacuation plan. Step 3 is, so again, it's this, we're getting buy-in from the community where you're volunteering 1 hour of time to work on these actions per year, 1 hour per dwelling per year to stay in good standing. There's examples of actions and activities and expenses that could be found. I have a link there. And you again host an outreach or work event to address the actions in your action plan. There's a lot of different ways to keep track of the hourly worksheet. There's a worksheet from the NFPA. Myself and other community members who've gone through the process we believe we've created a better way to capture all the information that you need to report on in the portal. And I, of course, share that with you. And so again, each year, neighbors complete education and risk reduction actions that are in the action plan. So this is just a list of all the connections for the Firewise USA. So I am the lead for Oakland, so you could reach out to me at joelle@oaklandfiresafecouncil.org. My regional coordinator for Firewise is Captain Malcolm Kennedy. So he serves all of Northern California. He's very busy, but he's easy to get a hold of. And they essentially read the applications in the Firewise portal. So it's CAL FIRE that approves or rejects the applications. The Firewise program lead, national lead for Firewise is Megan Fitzgerald McGowan. So she could answer the really high level questions about Firewise USA, as well as help you with problems in the portal. And of course, we partner with the Oakland Fire Department Vegetation Management Unit with Fire Marshal Felicia Brandt, and of course the supervisor, Adam Ball, who supervises the inspections. I work really closely with him on the Firewise assessments. And for more information, please reach out to me or go to our website. And that's about all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm going to stop sharing. If there's any questions about Firewise, anything I said, I know it was a lot
Thank you.
of information.
No, that was terrific. Let's see, there was a question about whether or not the minimum of 8 participants, do they need to be contiguous? And I answered
No.
online that the answer is no, and I'm just checking with you that that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you for answering that. No, they do not.
And let's see, are there any others? No, I think there aren't any specific to firewall. Firewise, I think we've covered it. Is that right?
And I'm happy to, if you reach out to me, if you are interested in hearing more about Firewise, give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm happy to just talk to you or to present to your neighborhood group or HOA.
Yeah, I can attest that Joelle is very responsive, and she's already working with my own neighborhood, and we're slowly getting launched, and so she's been extraordinarily helpful in sort of, I mean, frankly, I view it as sort of taking things to the next level. I mean, the fire inspections that the Oakland Fire Department does are extremely important, and one can add an extra layer of protection by having neighbors coordinate with one another. I think I'd like to move on. Thank you again, Joelle.
May I just
welcome.
add one thing?
Sure, yeah, go right ahead.
Joelle, if you could put your contact information in the chat.
Sure.
Great, thanks.
And I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to close out. So moving along, we're closing out this meeting. This is what PPNA prioritizes regarding fire safety, that, you know, we hold forums like this. We've been advocates for undergrounding. We coordinate with the Oakland Fire Safe Council, and you just heard from Joelle and some of the really cool stuff that they're doing there. We promote the formation and support Montclair organized neighborhoods. Our volunteers work on reducing fuel loads in our open spaces, organize work parties. There are some dumpsters. We supply the dumpsters at Ascot and Shelton for neighbors' green waste. And down at the bottom of this slide, you see the upcoming dates. Some are tentative, but yeah, there's some that are already there, I guess. And some PPNA business. There were some board elections, and PPNA members voted to extend the terms of these 4 members. I think it may be time. Oh, and Robbie, would you like to take it from here, please?
Yes, and as Peter just mentioned, we had 4 board members whose terms were extended, and very sadly, at least for me, one of our board members has chosen to retire. She thinks that 30 years was enough. I, on the other hand, don't agree with her. And that is Elaine Geffen. And if you've ever been down at the Painted Rocks on the first Monday of the month, you will always find Elaine down there doing everything she can with her team or without her team to keep that pristine welcome mat for Piedmont Pines. And she also delivers the welcome bags to all of our new residents in Piedmont Pines. And that keeps her busy, and she's decided that somebody else needs to take that on for her. Again, I'm not sure I agree with her, but that's her prerogative, I guess. She also is the one who has gotten the green bins for us at March Saunders Park through Johnny's office, working with waste management. She just does everything that is imagined. She's the head of the litter team. She's pretty astonishing. And we are going to miss you, Elaine. And we thank you very much for your 30 years. And as Peter already mentioned and Natasha mentioned, the next big event for Piedmont Pines is our Family Fun Picnic again at Temescal. This will be our 3rd annual, and we'll be getting more information out. It is September 8th. I hope your calendars are marked, that your kids are ready, or your grandparents, or whomever is in your family. We had people ranging from 3 weeks old last year to about 92, I think he said he was. So it's quite a fun event. Lots of things to do. So we hope you will enjoy us. Join us. Enjoy it and join us.
Yes, please join us and also check out the Oakland Fire Safe Council website. There's tons of useful information there. And visit us at piedmontpines.org and join us if you haven't already by becoming a dues-paying member. And finally, I guess I'm going to invite you to fill out the survey as you log off. I think that we are about to end this meeting. I guess we should check to see with my colleagues, are there any questions that are sort of dangling that somebody?
Yes, there's one
needs-
here from Felicia. One of our members has a fire hydrant at the bottom of his driveway and wonders who he can contact to have it tested to make sure it works.
So is it a private hydrant or a public
I'm
hydrant?
assuming it's fire department hydrant.
Fire department doesn't own fire hydrants. All fire hydrants are managed by East Bay Mud.
Ah,
So
Okay.
on the pamphlet itself, it tells you who to speak to. There should be information about contacting East Bay Mud. If not, then contact Adam Ball or email the wildfire prevention email, and we could get that information. But all hydrants are owned and operated by East Bay Mud.
Thank you for that, Felicia. Is there an online version of the pamphlet that people can just click on?
Not on me.
Okay.
I'm at home. I don't have it.
No, but
a PDF
oh, that's all
version.
right. Yeah, I mean, is it on the web? Is it
So
on
we
the
can put it,
city's
if
web?
it's not on the website, then I'll make sure that we put it on the website.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Wonderful.
and
Let's
could you add the
see.
website onto the chat? If it's not
I-
already on there?
No, I can add it on there.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I hope you've found this useful. We had, I don't know, somewhere around 100 participants in this meeting, and stay safe and fill out the survey on the way out, give us feedback, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. See you at the picnic. Good night, everybody.